Welcome, everybody, to Dead Talk Live. And tonight we have our special guest, star of the newly released movie Unborn, available on Tubi, Jade Harlow. Jade, thank you for being our guest. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Yeah. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited about this chat. Off the bat, I love this movie. I messaged you about it. Since I watched it this past weekend, I have told so many people about it, and they've watched it and they've loved the movie. It just got released last week. It is available on Tubi for everyone to watch. It is available. We're not going to give away any spoilers tonight. We're going to tiptoe around them because it is still a fairly new release. So let me just give a brief synopsis for the people who haven't heard about Unborn. It's about a couple, you and your partner Rachel, who are trying to get pregnant, and you're using IVF treatments. And Rachel, the character that you play, gets pregnant. And it is a horror movie, and it is called Unborn. So the 9 months are not all rainbows and kittens. We could
No.
just leave it at that. And you guys can come to your own conclusions and watch the film. So let's get to it. How did you land the role of Rachel? How did this project come your way?
I was working on another film for Cartel Productions when the producer, Eric Woods, came up to me and he was like, "Hey, do you know Stephen Monroe?" And I was like, "Sort of, not really. I know, his work. Um, and I know his wife socially, but I've never had the chance to work with him. I would love to work with him. Why?" He's like, "Well, Monroe's got a picture happening and he's dropping your name and seeing if you're interested." And I'm just like, "Yes, whatever the project is. I don't even know what the project is. Yes."
That's all. So, did you have to audition for Steven, or was it sort of like given to you?
So it's kind of a little bit of both. I didn't have to audition for Steven, but I had to audition for Tubi
Okay.
because, yeah, they didn't know me from Adam. So, yeah, I had to go ahead and self tape for Rachel and submit it to Tubi for approval. And thankfully it went through. So, yay.
You were great as Rachel. It's such an emotionally complex character. Your emotions throughout the film are all over the place. Naturally, because A, you're pregnant,
Pregnant, yeah.
and B, there's something unnatural about your pregnancy as well. So to, portray that wide spectrum of emotions, was that difficult and challenging for you as an actress?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, especially look, I'm a huge horror fan. I grew up on horror like mother's milk. So in the front of my mind, I have iconic performances, like Mia Farrow and Rosemary's Baby.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I can't, I don't want to imitate that and have any comparisons to that because how could you compete with that?
Yeah.
Um, but with the pregnancy and also with it being a supernatural pregnancy, what it came down for me is my life, Rachel's life, isn't worth anything.
Mm-hmm.
Her partner will be the better parent. My character, is emotionally destroyed after the loss of her own mother.
Mm-hmm.
She's completely alone in the world. Her life doesn't feel like it's worth much to her,
Yeah.
but the life of the child matters more than anything. I think Rachel's big thing is she just doesn't want to die this way,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't want the child to die. So carrying me through that film was the thought of just don't let me die like this.
Okay, and that completely worked. Now, you said you're a horror fan, but you're fairly new when it comes to appearing in horror films. Is that accurate, first off?
Yeah.
So, going into this, you just mentioned the responsibility of like Mia Farrow and Rosemary's Baby. Do you think you added an extra responsibility to your shoulders more than there should have been?
I think, I think everybody who does horror should be a horror fan. I really do. I think there's so many great performances, whether the movie went mainstream or not, in horror, because you are talking life or death at the end of the day.
Hmm.
So yeah, I took a bigger responsibility on myself because I'm a fan of the genre, and I know it's not something you can sleepwalk through or play lightly at. It has to be guttural or it's nothing.
Exactly, because horror fans are very devoted. It's the most loyal community, in the entertainment genre out there. And they'll let you know. They'll let you know if, 100% effort wasn't put in and you gave it all and you put it all out there on the table and it definitely came through. Now, your co star in the film is Ella Thomas. She plays Amber, your partner. How did you two get along? Was there uh, easy onset chemistry? Did you two bond very quickly?
Well, it's funny because I knew I had to do chemistry reads with the ambers they were bringing in, and I was like, okay. And I saw Ella Thomas. I sort of looked. They were like, you have a chemistry read tomorrow with Ella Thomas, and I was like, oh, we have the same agent. So I texted my agent and I was like, do you think that your client would be willing to meet with me in COVID outside and have like a drink with me before our chemistry read tomorrow? Just to sort of see if we actually had chemistry
Hmm.
instead of just, going in blind and reading the words. And so we met up that night at a bar. And we did. We had chemistry. She was just very real. She'd never done a film like this in the sense of we shot Unborn in 12 days.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, yeah. And I've done a few of these 12-day movies where I know that, it's 2 6-day weeks. There's no such thing as sleep. It's 16-hour days and it's everything you've got.
Hmm.
So I was like, are you ready for something like this? Because it's never going to stop. Like once we start, we're in it. And she was like, I'm up to the challenge of doing this. And that answer alone was like, she's not going to leave me in the lurch,
Yeah.
not as a partner, not as a scene partner. So when we did our chemistry read together, I think the mutual support and understanding that we had the night before, which nobody knows, Tubi doesn't know, maybe now, kind of sang through.
And how was it like working for Steven, with Steven directing this film? Did he give you guys a lot of latitude to explore the characters on your own?
I am such an incredible fan of Stevens, like
Yeah.
bottom line. And he's a great partner. Like it's one thing to admire somebody's work, and it's another thing, like they could be a monster on set or they could be totally absent and not be available to you for any question or how are we doing this and
Yeah.
how do you see this going. He was always available, always collaborative. If there was a moment where I didn't feel like it was sitting right or we were in the sweet spot, I could look to him and he would be like, yeah, I feel that too. Let's workshop this out. Let's talk this out. Like, what if we tried? And he had some wild ideas that I was completely trusting and willing to try, even though I'm like, doesn't feel natural. Like with the stabbing of the food in one
Yeah.
scene, he's like, just swing for the fences on this one and go far with it. And I was like, all right, man, I trust you. And it worked. And he
It
was
did.
right. Yeah. So it was great. I would shoot with him in a heartbeat.
Now, Rachel, as we see throughout the movie, starts, like mother's intuition. Something is not right. And you have your partner, Amber, and everybody's sort of, blaming hormones, blaming the pregnancy, this will all pass. So, putting yourself in that spot where absolutely nobody believes you, and here's your partner, the person who's supposed to be your best friend and the closest person that you can confide in, nobody believes you in this film. And to get yourself into that mindset, it's very difficult because it's very hard to imagine all the people that you trust in the world, none of them believe you. Did you find that especially challenging?
I leaned into it. I leaned into it in the prep. So the way I prepped the role was I isolated myself from everyone. That way, every experience I was going through in prep to do this was something I had to go through alone that no one else would
Wow.
understand. So, not my partner, um, nobody.
Wow.
And it continued on set, especially when you put the belly on. As soon as you put the belly on, there's things you can't do. I can't sit down
Mm-hmm.
with everybody and eat or hang out. Like it's uncomfortable. All I can do is sort of like stand around. And then when you can't sit and hang out with everybody and you're trying to protect your mindset for the character, you're trying to protect the baby of this character in this film. You don't want to hear disco music and jokes going on from the crew. Like I withdrew, I isolated. And so the more Rachel felt like I'm completely alone in this experience and I am totally lost in my isolation. I felt like that while we were shooting,
Oh,
with the
what?
exception of the few moments that I could look to Steven as a partner
Mm-hmm.
and knew he was just as deep in it as I was.
Wow. When you got the script and you read through the whole thing, what were your initial thoughts on what you would have to go through?
Well, my biggest fear, the supernatural stuff was not my biggest fear because, like I said, I am a horror fan and I live in all things that are dark and I mean, you name it, from true crime and the worst of what you could ever know as a
Mm-hmm.
human, what other humans have done. Um, like none of that scared me. What scared me was being believable through a pregnancy because I've never experienced a pregnancy and I've never experienced labor.
Mm-hmm.
So this is any woman who's ever had a baby is going to be like, that's not it, sister. But I went and I had a colonic,
Wow.
which is the most awful, uncomfortable thing I've ever done. I would never do it ever again, ever. But that feeling of my body going through something that I was trying to control but couldn't control, but it was happening without me, but I'm there for it to happen. Like I did that because that was the pregnancy and the labor was what scared me most about this, more than going to the dark place of
Yeah.
am I going to bring an evil into the world?
Yeah. Now, as you, like I asked, when you were reading the script and the story of Lilith, which people will see when they watch the movie, till we get to the third act where the film ends and, I guess you could say the full circle that you come. Uh, I mean, did you like the creativeness of the writers and how they put that all together and how Steven brought that to the screen?
I did. I thought Joe Rockman, who was the writer of Unborn, he put a lot of really unique elements into this film.
Yep.
Not just the same sex couple who conceived through IVF idea.
Which is, by the way, I gotta point out, kudos to them for doing that. I mean, yeah, seeing LGBT couples is becoming more and more common, but to take it to the next level of an LGBT couple trying to conceive and either adopt or have a baby, I just want to say kudos to Tubi for taking it to that level.
Yeah, and I think what everybody's aiming for in terms of equality is not like we need more movies about gay people. No, you need more movies about all people
Yeah,
in a variety of circumstances. And this couple just so happened to be a same-sex couple
exactly.
going through this. It could have been a hetero couple, it could have been a couple with a big age difference, it could have been a variety of couples, but it happened to be a same-sex couple. And I agree. Kudos to Tubi for not just making it the singular genre of an LGBTQ genre, but cross-genring it with horror and making it a horror frontrunner.
And this is a testament to both you and Ella. Within 10 to 15 minutes into the movie, at least for me, the whole LGBT things, it completely washed away. I mean, it's not,
Good.
it's like just seeing a regular married couple. I mean, not that it's not regular, I'm just saying it completely washed away because you too acted like a married couple. I've been married for 22 years, and the
Congratulations.
way that you and Ella behaved is how a normal married couple behaves. I have three children. My wife's been pregnant three times. So, yeah, it felt very real and very authentic. And for me, being a husband and a parent, it struck a chord because it felt, like you said, very real and authentic. What has been, since the movie came out, the reaction that you've been getting from fans, not just horror fans, but fans in general?
It's interesting. I don't think anyone, like you said, I'm a fan of horror, but I haven't had the opportunity to do horror until this moment. So I'm kind of new on the scene, and the reaction is like shock that Unborn came out of me in a way, which feels really, really great because it finally feels like I've done the kind of work that I've always wanted to do. You know, that real guttural, not pretty, throw yourself out there kind of work. So far the response has been positive, but I don't know how many people have seen the film yet.
Oh, it's just it hasn't even been out. I think this Friday will be a week, right? It hasn't
Yeah,
even.
we're just coming off opening weekend.
Yeah, yeah, it's barely been out a week, and the word, nowadays, with all the digital streaming content out there, it's word of mouth, and the word is starting to spread very quickly about Unborn, and it's becoming very popular. It's going to take a little bit of time, but the word will get out there. Uh, so now that you got to do the role that you grew up loving in the genre you love in horror, progressing in your career, do you want to do a lot more horror?
I do. I mean, the answer should probably be I want to do something that makes a lot of money. But if I wanted to do that, I wouldn't be an actor.
Yeah.
And the truth is what made me want to be an actor is when I was 9, I saw Linda Blair in The Exorcist,
Mm.
and I said that is what I want to do. As weird as that is for a 9-year-old to say, that's what drew me to this business and to this job. So yeah, I love horror. I love the heightened emotions within horror. I love the nuances of horror, the fight for survival under any and every circumstance and trying to figure out a way. I think is way more exciting than,
Yeah.
trying to make people laugh or play a romance.
Now you spent 10 years on a show called The Bay, uh, over 90 episodes, and now you go into feature films as a leading role. What has been, I guess, the biggest surprise is the right question, going from such a steady job for a decade into making a film shot in 12 days?
Well, I think the fear for a lot of people who come from television and doing series regular work on television is, you know, will is there a life beyond the character I've been playing for so long?
Yeah.
Um, and it's nice to know that there is, and the ability to, be an adolescent or in your, late teens, early 20s, and starting with a show, and then becoming an adult and reintroducing yourself to a whole new group of people as an adult
Mm-hmm.
in film, they don't know you yet,
No.
has been a really lovely shift.
It's like, I would imagine it's exhilarating that there is life after, that show, that where you, like I said, you did over 90 episodes, and here you got tapped to play a leading role in a movie. Would you say there are any aspects between your character Rachel in Unborn and yourself that are similar, or is Rachel the complete opposite of you?
No, she's not. I wish I was like, Daniel Day Lewis in My Left Foot and like that level of a character actor. But the truth is I think you can see on Rachel and the way she tries to fit within the world, that she doesn't put herself forward. She doesn't put herself first until she's absolutely cornered to do that. Or she'll hide her trying to suit her own needs from people and be shy about speaking up that like she needs something.
Hmm.
That's me all over.
Okay. Now, the movie is a psychological thriller horror movie. It does have elements of gore in it, in particular, that visit with your doctor and
Mm.
what happens in that office. Now, this is going to be a weird question, but were you like amped up as a horror fan to see how they were going to play out that scene and shoot it?
Yes. I love the gags. I love the horror gags. I love practical effects. I think practical effects are head and shoulders above vis effects. Yeah, I'm a child of the 80s and I grew up with Nightmare on Elm
Yeah.
Street and things like that, where, the more practical effects, I think the more believable it looks to the actors in the room. You have something to respond to and also to the audience. And so when we did Dr. Fern's scene,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I was fascinated to see how they were going to rig that. And even more than that, the performance by the actor.
Hmm.
Um, because, you'd read the script and read the script and I've read that script 30 times by the time we were ready to shoot. And I didn't know who they had cast as Dr. Fern. We hadn't chemistry tested or worked together or anything like that. So it was like, hi, nice to meet you. Let's do this big scene. And he was so much better than I had read on the page. I'd really read Dr. Fern softer and more tight-assed
Hmm.
than the actor who portrayed him. And so when the shift is made in that scene, um, it really hit with me. And that actor was so committed, even without the gag. If they had vis effects the gag,
Hmm.
he was selling it in the room with me as his partner in every cell of his body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, you know, it's funny. We got to tiptoe around these spoiler landmines. If we go to the third act, and like I mentioned earlier, Rachel and Amber come full circle. We're not going to tell the audience what happens. Do you like how they ended the film?
I do. I like that they left it open because, one, if Unborn 2 is going to happen, let me know. um, and two, I think that as a horror fan, as a fan of someone, or as someone who's a fan of like the mystical and like the evil that
Yeah.
lies, that's ancient, that could always come back and grab you by the throat. And I think that the way they ended this film leaves the audience with an unsettled feeling of, is it really out there? Could it be? What's going to happen as it
That's.
grows?
I like the fact that, in the audience who has not watched it will not know that you guys ended up on that ranch. I thought
Yeah.
that was very macabre the way they did that and the way they ended the film. The film starts off with you suffering a very traumatic event. Your mother dies.
Yes.
That's in the first 5 minutes. Now, uh, throughout the pregnancy, we get these little reveals with the ultrasound in particular. Would you say that is sort of the evilness in the film, trying to manipulate you into thinking that your mother is looking over your pregnancy?
I think if for anybody, whoever they love the most in this world, whether it's their mother, their father, their partner, their child, imagine the person you love most in the world that loved you most in this world dies.
Yeah,
And that there is a hope that they could maybe come back in some way.
yeah,
And you could be a part of that. You would do everything to protect it.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
I like that layer of it. And then later in the film, when you realize how open and vulnerable Rachel was to the suggestion that that was her mother or could be her mother, or maybe it is. Just her desperation to have that person back was enough to open her up for something to slip in.
Exactly. And ignore all the other warning signs. What I
Right.
love, what another aspect that I really loved is that throughout the film, even though you're physically seeing stuff like what happens to the doctor and you're feeling that something is not wrong, you still question yourself, am I crazy? Is it the hormones? Is it the pregnancy? Am I seeing and feeling things that are not there? What do you think about that?
I think that whenever you're going through a circumstance where you feel completely isolated and no one can identify with you, and you're an island and you're reaching out with both hands, and screaming and saying I am in trouble, whether it's someone going through a mental illness or it's someone going through a depression, that they are ready to beg for help in any way, and the world says you're fine
Yeah.
to them. It just makes you think, I'm crazy. I know I'm not fine, but I can't make anybody hear me. I'm screaming into the wind and no one can hear me. And I think that's the scariest part, is that she'll have to go through it alone.
For me, that was very much like the pinnacle of that was when you and Amber were in the kitchen, and I think she says something along the lines of "suck it up."
Yep.
You know, that says it all right there.
Yeah.
Jade, I wish we could talk more about it, but like I
Oh,
said,
me too.
we're not gonna spoil it. Guys, the movie is called Unborn. It's available right now on Tubi for free. Uh, Download. It is free, right?
Oh,
Tubi.
it's completely free. And the
Yes.
link, yeah, and the link, if to make it easy for any and everybody, if you go to my Instagram page, which is Jade Harlow 12, the link is right there in my bio. You can click it, it'll take you right to Tubi. You won't have to use the search menu and go all the
Yep.
way to the view and all the way to the end. Like, just go there, click
It's
the link.
Tubi is absolutely free. The movie is free. There's no reason you guys should not watch this film. It's a great horror film. It's a great psychological horror film.
Thank you.
Jade is absolutely phenomenal in it. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on our show. Any final thoughts you want to share before we go?
Thank you for having me. And also, thank you for having something cool like Dead Talk Live, where people like us can commune and break bread and drink blood and talk about
Exactly.
all things that go bump.
What I love the most about my job is I love talking to actors and filmmakers, especially in the independent filmmaking world, as well as the studio world as well. But just hearing stories and all the amazing connections that I've made and talking to great people like yourself. So thank you. Guys,
Thank you.
thank you so much for tuning in, whether you're watching this live or watching this later on. Archived, again, Unborn, available on Tubi. Thank you to Jade Harlow for being our guest. Till next time, on behalf of Jade and myself, stay safe, stay walking. Good night, everybody.